Today on the Self Smarter podcast, you have a healthy culture. That's great. Now, the bad news about that is you try to bring in a round peg into a square hole, which is a culture that's established. That's difficult.
It is hard.
Hi, we're Danelle and Megan, the hosts of this conversation-centric podcast for leaders seeking to be better every day. Whether you choose to be a leader in the workplace, at home, or in your community, we believe the most effective leaders are equipped to not only be self-starters, but self-smarter.
Hello and welcome to Self Smarter. I'm Megan, and today I'm so happy to introduce you to Hannah Wadley, who is here with me.
Hello.
Hello.
So excited to be here.
Oh God, we're so glad you're here. Hannah is a team member here at DMA, and she has a very special role. Hannah, can you explain your role for listeners?
Yes, so my title is Director of People and Operations, and ultimately what that is, as the title states, I serve the people. And so that looks like me guiding them in their development, their growth. I will support them on how they delegate their time, really what they're spending their time on as far as the work goes, and ultimately navigate challenges with them along the way.
No small feat.
Yeah, no small feat.
Just no big deal.
It's a fun job. It's ever changing. Every day looks different. So I do love that part about my role. And of course, I also support the recruiting and the hiring and the onboarding process here at DMA, which is super great. And really what we're looking for during that is the ideal team player. Qualities of the ideal team player.
Yes.
Which are hungry, humble, and smart. Our three biggies.
That's right. DMA. That's right. And so that's really where our conversation is going to go today. We're going to be talking about hiring the ideal team player. And if you haven't listened to it yet, maybe you'll go back and listen to episode 7. That one was titled, Think You're an Ideal Team Player, Think Again. We touch a little bit on where that comes from, and we'll talk more about it. So you don't need to leave or anything right now, but just know that there is that. If you're more interested, or if you want to take a step back and start there, you can do that. So before we get going, I just wanted to just give a little personal note that you are a new mommy.
Yes, I am, to a sweet little boy. He's 8 months, going on 9.
I can't believe it.
It's gone by fast, really.
Yes.
And it's been a joyful time. It's been a hard time. It's been a learning curve, for sure, if you will. It's funny because Megan and I talk about all the time that, you know, you are told a lot of things. You're given a lot of advice. And typically it's on very tactical, specific things, but you're not necessarily prepared for the emotional, different things that you're doing as far as lack of sleep. I mean, people tell you don't sleep.
Yeah.
They really elaborate on no, you
really
don't sleep.
Really.
And it's not just in the newborn phase. So, you know, babies go through the ups and downs as they develop. And so even now, we're still navigating sleep as he goes through these regressions they talk about.
Yes.
And so it's just getting comfortable with different and ever-changing development.
Right. And it's so interesting to me because you're going through this. You were the first person, other than me, Marcy and I, who both have grown teenage children, to go through this at DMA. So it's been a really interesting journey for us from a human resources perspective to have our human resources expert going through the exercise of having a child, going through maternity leave, coming back to work and trying to transition back in, which I know has been, you make it look really easy.
Thank you.
But I know it's not.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely, if I'm being totally vulnerable, of course, which we love to focus on here, is coming back to work, leaving your baby at home. You know, you get hit with that mom guilt for sure.
Yes.
It's hard, dropping him off or leaving him with other people and he's crying and reaching for you and saying mama. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm choosing to go to work, but I'm choosing to go to work.
That's right.
I'm making that decision. And I remind myself why, and that's to provide and continue to bring a lot of fun and unique opportunities to the family. And, you know, it pours into me, which will then pour into him.
That's right.
And I know in the long run, it's going to be worth it.
So worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to call something out about this baby. His name is Clay. He's a doll. And when I say that this child is precious, you know, people tell moms that all the time, but I really mean it. This child could be this child could be a model. He looks like a Gerber baby.
He literally is truly,
precious.
Yeah. And obviously I don't want to sound biased, but he truly, from the second he was born, he never really embodied that alien baby look. He literally came out model baby. He has the bluest, prettiest eyes.
And so do you.
He's just, in his personality, it's the best. He is the happiest. the happiest baby. He's so easy.
I'm so glad. You know, and for you, just watching you love this child and learning about, you know, I can be angry with them or I can be frustrated with things and love them all the more,
That's an interesting thing to navigate, because you'll wake up and I'm like, why aren't you sleeping? Like, you can be frustrated, but then you're like, oh, but you're so cute. And I love you. It's whatever you need.
Yes.
I will stay up all night for you.
Yes. Yes. Well, I appreciate you. And I know Danelle does too. And all that you do for our business in this role, we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk more about it. Before we do that, I want to hop to this quick commercial. I want you guys to listen. Quick commercial. Self Smarter listeners, I'm so happy to share with you a little secret that we've been working on that is coming soon to you, our devoted listeners. In just a couple of weeks, we will have some of the tools and helpful information that we talk about each week on the podcast available to you. We are doing this because you've asked for it. We haven't had it to give you, and now we've been working hard here to prepare solutions that may be of service to you as you develop yourself and your teams. Stay tuned. I'll be back with more details soon, but just know our team cares so deeply about your success, and we hope this new evolution of Self Smarter proves it to you. #excited. Okay, Hannah. So first and foremost, I want to elaborate about why we chose to elevate this particular topic. So why Hungry, Humble, Smart? Number one, people are working. And as of June 2023, y'all know I like to talk about unemployment rates. I like to take a pulse on what it's like out there, because it directly affects not only what we talk about, but our business.
And it's ever changing.
Right. It affects everyone's business. So as of June 2023, the unemployment rate in this country is less than 4%. That is great news from a jobs perspective. What this means is that recruiters and human resources professionals like Hannah are working extra hard and smarter to find the right people to fill seats in their business. I think I'm hopeful, let me say that the days of willy-nilly hiring, like what we used to do, are over, and people need to think very strategically about how they do that. And that's precisely what we want to talk about today. For us, Danelle and I debate about this. Are we small or are we medium? I think according to industry standards, we're medium. Yeah. But to me, it feels small in comparison to these larger corporations that exist. Okay. So for me, as a small organization compared to many others, we have struggled over the years in recruitment. I just want to say that right out loud and right at the top. Yeah. Until we started to put really a methodology that made sense to us and aligned our culture and values with it, recruitment was a headache that ended up costing us time, money, and a lot of heartache and heartbreak. Heartache and heartbreak because it was so disappointing to lose people or to get to the position where we were frustrated so much that someone was in the wrong seat or we had hired the wrong person altogether because they just weren't adapting and we weren't adapting to them. We had to bring that to a close for the future of our business. So today, if we can help others on their recruitment process, we're happy to do so. And the way that we did it was with this woman sitting right next to me, Hannah. So, Hannah, you are absolutely instrumental in the success of our organization. I can't tell you how much. Would you refer to your role as human resources, just to start the conversation? Because I think traditionally that's what people think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And really, we like to say human resources plus. And that plus really embodies all the extra part of my role. The people piece, really like deeper into the people, not just the day-to-day process, procedure.
Like the work.
Yeah, but like really developing them as leaders, everybody individually as leaders, putting them on the path of development, being there to support them, navigating the day-to-day, and helping them ultimately be the best version of themselves in and outside of the office, and follow along with our company mission and ultimately live out the values of better every day and helpful first.
Right. I think one of the things that's so interesting about Hannah's job, for those of you that are listening, is it's really I don't think it's a normal role. Why? She's not here to catch all the negative feedback. She's not here to catch, like, oh, I was harassed in the kitchen. Right. Not that that's a bad thing. Yeah. That we need people like that, but we just don't have that here as like I said, small organization that's 100% women, at least here in Dallas.
HR looks a little bit different here.
Totally.
Than it probably does typically on average elsewhere.
What this is if I'm a team member, I am a team member at DMA, I can talk to Hannah about anything. I can talk to her about my struggle at home. I can talk to her about my struggle at work with somebody. What Hannah's going to do is take an objective view of the situation and coach them to do something positive about it. We're not going to wallow in it. What we're going to do is I'm going to listen. I think that's your gift.
Yes.
I'm going to listen, and then I'm going to help guide you on the things that you can do. Again, you talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
Choice, free will.
Oh, yeah.
Use your free will to apply yourself in a different way. So really what I would like to tee up is that you're working with people on emotional intelligence as it pertains to the business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And really that took me, I would say, a solid 2 years.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because it takes time to learn everybody on an individual level and get to know their personality traits, their strengths and weaknesses, what we like to say, joy and frustrations when it comes to the work, really what's making them like tick.
Yeah.
And that takes time. And we want to get to the bottom potentially of fears that might be relevant when it comes to the work piece that definitely can be a hold back when it comes to their development. And so I'm kind of getting into the weeds with them, if you will, day to day. And trust, ultimately.
Yes.
Trust is so big in my role. And that's why I say 2 years, because trust takes time to build. And that is a foundation that is just key to my success in my role.
That's right. Yep. And, like I mentioned before, you don't replace managers and leaders. You complement. You are a leader. You're an incredibly important leader in our organization. So give us, I think it would be helpful if you gave us an example of a conversation with a manager differ from a conversation that you might have with a team member at DMA.
Yes, that's a good point. Really, a conversation with a manager. So typically on average, like week over week, they're going to be meeting on the week ahead. So that might look like client work, specifically going over work prioritization.
Tactical.
Yes. Going through potentially any deadline hurdles, very short term, if you will, typically on average, right? I'm just speaking
Sure.
on average. When it comes to me, when they're meeting with me, it's going to be a little bit more big picture. I will be looking at their development overall, always. It's always what I'm looking at, is like their end game goal. Like I always have that in mind. I typically know where everybody wants to get, like where they want to get to, whether that be 6 months, a year, 5 years from now. I always approach my conversations with that in mind. So my conversations with the team are a little bit more all encompassing.
Yes.
And quite frankly, like for example, I will support them on potentially how to approach a conversation with their manager, how best to get as much value out of that conversation as possible. And so because I work with the people and I'm so focused on that, I know everybody's strengths and weaknesses, as I mentioned. And so I can help them approach their manager potentially if there's a conversation that they might be dreading or nervous to have. I can teach them how to address the manager. And on the flip side, I can help the managers with how best to give feedback,
right?
How that individual receives it the best way. And so it's a constant balance of being a friend.
Yes.
Outside factors play a role all the time, right? But then always focusing on the work at the end of the day.
Right.
How they can be most successful in their role and support the team.
Right. So from where I sit as an executive leader of this organization, I just want to say what's so interesting about her role is she's a confidant. She knows the goals. We all know basically, at least on the executive team, what people's goals are. Mm-hmm. Hannah helps them get there behind the scenes. So she's kind of that extra push, that private conversation that needs to take place that may be holding somebody back. She's the one giving that feedback. Not to say that the managers aren't either.
No.
But Hannah just does it in a very different way. Do I know everything that Hannah and employees talk about? No, I don't. And that's okay. We had to get past and beyond the having to know everything.
Right.
And we had to trust you to trust yourself and trust the team that you could help us get people where they need to be from a developmental perspective. So let's circle back to recruitment and the ideal team player. So let's just talk, you and I both, back and forth about high level ideal team player and how you apply it to your role.
This is a biggie.
Yeah.
We use it really as a marker for where people are, and it's ever changing. So everybody's going to have ebbs and flows when it comes to hungry, humble, smart. Usually that involves what role they're particularly in at the time.
Okay.
If they're leading someone, if they're not leading someone, if they're going through a fun time outside the office, potentially like a fun chapter of their lives, maybe a hard chapter of their lives that will naturally trickle into the work and that will adjust the hungry and the humble and the smart. If If you're having a hard time outside the office, you might not be super hungry potentially while you're here. And so just being super hyper aware of everybody, like their pulse on their level of hungry, humble, smart at all times to help them navigate those. Really, we like to use it in recruitment primarily.
Yes.
Because ideally, we are hiring ideal team players. So they already embody these 3 qualities. And then once they're here, it's just a matter of supporting them as it trickles through.
Right.
Up and down.
I love it because, so first of all, the person that created this is Patrick Lencioni, which we talked about before. I'm a huge fan. He's a 9 leader as well as on the Enneagram. He's a 9. And he inspired us years ago. I know he works a lot with Southwest Airlines. My best friends have been aligned with Southwest Airlines forever. So the book is available. We'll actually put it in the show notes. I think it's like $12. It's something like, it's like the Enneagram. It's like so affordable. Yes. And in the book, there's an assessment. I believe Patrick Lencioni's company, the Table Group, also has an assessment available for download on their website.
Yes.
Tablegroup.com. Okay. So we'll put that link in the show notes as well. But just so y'all can go refer to and investigate a little bit deeper, do that. In terms of this episode, what I want to do is dive deeper into how you use hungry, humble, and smart, or humble, hungry, and smart to help us recruit. So why don't we start with humble?
Yeah. So humble, that is a big one.
Okay.
It's important that we have employees who are humble. Really what that looks like is they're going to celebrate the team. They're going to celebrate others' success, potentially before their own. I do want to preface it's important that people celebrate their own success too, because if you're opposite of humble, like you're not humble enough, that's also not an ideal trait.
That's right.
Want to find that happy medium. But a humble person is not ego focused. They are not chasing a status. That's not driving the reason why they're wanting to work. And they're really focused on giving other people praise and giving credit where credit is due, quite frankly.
Right. And this is like the fluidity of life that you don't even realize is happening, that you have to keep a constant eye on. Like you almost have to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the person you're talking to understand. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we are going to be boastful today when they normally aren't, or whatever.
It's interesting.
I know.
It happens, and that's, you want to see the turnaround. Like it's okay. They give themselves a little pat on the back. That's
of course.
Good. But you want to watch out for the constant pat on the back for themselves and little to no praise for others.
Right. I think that's hard in today's society.
It is.
I think we're being taught, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? But let's just, we got to keep our eye on the prize when it comes to that. So this is a good transition. Give us examples of ways you determine if you're recruiting a humble person or not. Like, what do you do?
Sure. As an 8, which I'm sure y'all have heard them share about Hannah the 8 on previous podcasts.
Yes, we have.
I really use my gut at the end of the day. I have a good intuition of people. And so that really drives my conversations during the recruitment process. However, at the end of the day, when it comes to humility, when I'm pulsing that, I'm asking questions such as, what's your most successful time in your previous job? Or what drives you in your success? I also really like to ask them who they owe their success to. And really in that answer, I'm constantly listening for us and we, not me.
Me, mine, me.
I, right? So I want them to say, we as a team did the X, Y, Z. And so that's a good indicator that they're focused on others. And of course, you want to know when they're unsuccessful. Are they willing to share that? Some people stumble over that answer because they feel like they've got to put on a show. You do not want that as an answer.
That perfection bug.
Exactly. And I love to ask the golden question. This is a controversial, overdone question potentially. People don't love to always ask what their weaknesses are, but I promise you, when you ask that question, it is super eye-opening because you can tell if it's scripted, if it's the, a particular answer with a follow-up of, but I've overcome it, or, and it's okay because I'm good. I'm good now. You really want them to kind of get down a little. At least for us.
Yes.
At our company, we're looking for more vulnerability.
Yes.
And so I want to see them be open and honest with this answer and not feel like feel like they have to put on a show.
That's right. Yeah. Then that's good. You're right. So transparency, vulnerability are they're not our core values, but they're certainly part of the special sauce that makes up, an ideal team player for us. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're looking for someone who really neither overrates or underrates themselves. That's humility. Okay.
Exactly. And as a leader at the end of the day too, we should be giving praise
Yeah.
other people. Like that's what we're looking for. And so we want that in candidates too. We want them to accept the wins. We want them to accept the losses. And we really want to see them give credit to others.
Okay. All right. Great. What about hungry? Can you tell us more about this trait and determine if someone, like, how do you tell? If no one's done the work for you, how do you know?
Yeah, this is a must, right? If you're, well, especially if you're working in a fast-paced environment, you need hungry people. You need hungry employees. These people are driven. They want the work. They want the more.
Yes.
They want a lot of responsibility. They care about that. And that drives their success. And so they're always looking for the next big opportunity, the next big project. And they're committed to the work. They're willing to go the extra mile. They're willing to go above and beyond. Hungry without getting burnt out.
Okay.
That's important. We look for indicators that they're self-motivated.
Right.
We don't want a manager to have to constantly be pushing the employee to be better, do more. Like, come on, let's reach this deadline. We want them to be self-sufficient.
Right. Right. Okay. So what about examples of ways you determine that? Like what kind of questions do you ask?
Yeah. So I like to really pulse their previous work experience. It's primarily where I'm focused on when I'm pulsing hungry rather. We are looking for, do they currently have a big book of work? Do they like to have a big book of work? I love to ask the question about change. Do they like change? If you're catching the drift that someone prefers the status quo.
Yes.
Usually it's not going to be your most hungry candidate.
At least for our world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely roles out there where consistency, status quo is ideal, right? Like maybe that's exactly what you need.
Right.
But for here, we're looking for someone who is, like I said, always going to be chasing the next big thing. And so we want them to be willing to be open to change, push themselves outside the norm.
Yes.
Yeah. Be willing to just get outside of the status quo.
Yeah. Okay. You know, in Hannah's defense and saying all that, like I wanted to interject that, like there are places and roles where you want someone who's uber comfortable with little change if you don't have a lot of change in the day. But here, the work that we do, we're always chasing the next idea. We're always chasing the next client, or we're chasing the next big thing that we could be offering, like in terms of helping marketing. So for us, that is almost a requirement if you're going to be in marketing.
Yes. And you have to take everything about this hiring process and cater it to your company.
Your needs. Good point.
It's very important that you use the hungry, humble, smart, and cater the questions to fit what your ideal team player looks like in your company and your culture, quite frankly, because our ideal team player is going to look different for us at a marketing agency than perhaps somewhere else.
Right. Thank you for that. Okay. And smart, which personally I think is the hardest one.
Oof, it is. It's also my favorite.
Okay.
It's my favorite to talk about. It's my favorite to coach and foster with the team. I love this one.
Okay.
Like we talked about, smart is really the emotional intelligence piece. And this is not something that I think at least can be taught easily.
Right.
You can foster it. You can definitely nurture it. You can't necessarily teach someone immediately, perhaps, depending on where they're at in their stage of development. But smart is self-awareness, really. At the end of the day, it's awareness of yourself, awareness of others. And ideal team player smart is not to be thought of as book smart by any means. It's definitely more geared towards the people smart piece.
Okay.
And so this will look like being able to read a room. You're able to, you just have good people judgment and good people skills. You can have effective conversations. I mean, really, you have common sense.
Right.
It's really what I like to, it's common sense of people, really. And like I said, this is crucial. This is crucial for our team. It's a huge part of our culture. Mm-hmm. We love it. We're all about self-awareness. You hear us talk about this on the podcast all the time. But really, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Okay, so you're meeting someone for maybe the first or second time. How do you determine if it's smart in this sense or not?
Honestly, it's easier to pick up if they're not smart.
Okay.
So usually those are the indicators that I see first. And so that might look like them being super distracted, perhaps. They're ill-prepared.
Okay.
They might be timid, unsure of how to elevate a concern, and that's okay. But when you're lacking smart, you really struggle with how to approach people, and you might behave or say things outside what might be considered the norm, unconventional. And so you kind of struggle a little bit with off-putting comments. It's easier to pick up non-smart people.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
But I will tell you, at least from my experience, those kind of people stick out like sore thumbs in the recruitment process. It's very easy for me to weed those people out from the get-go.
First?
Yes.
Okay.
The smarts, it's how they respond, quite frankly, how they show up with you.
Right. I think one of the struggles that we had early on with our recruitment process, and this is under my leadership, mine and Danelle's leadership, I will pin us and take full accountability, is we would talk more than we allowed the recruit to speak. And in doing that was not very smart of us or humble. It was hungry.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was steamrolling, and we would steamroll the interview, and we would do all the talking for them and almost put words in their mouth. So the minute we figured this out, maybe we need to stop talking, and maybe we need to listen and watch how this person actually behaves. Because what was happening was we would bring someone into the organization that we had interviewed and steamrolled over with, commentary, and then they're saying outlandish things in a big group meeting. And then the other people that have been at the company are like, what is this?
How did this happen? Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's so interesting how that happens. And that's why it's so important that I'm able to pull out the ideal team player piece during the interview process. And one way that we really do that is just consistently listening and watching for their behavior, to your point, letting them talk as much as they can, giving as much opportunity as possible. We really love to have them come in person. That's why towards the end of the interview process, our final interview is an in-person if we can. And that is really telling. That is when you can really see them like in the zone. They're in your culture. They're interacting amongst the rest of the team. And we always love to bring our team into the fold with interviewing. It's not just me. It's not just our leaders. Right. Everybody in the company. We want full buy-in. And I really rely on the team, quite frankly, to help me determine if this person is the right fit.
That's good. You know what's hard, and this was hard before, and now it's hard now, is when someone they can do the work. Mm-hmm. Like we can see it. Like, part of our process is you'll ask people, you work with us, you work with the marketers to say, okay, what kind of exercise can we give them? Because SMART comes out of that. Hungry, humble, and smart come out of an exercise like that. I'm either following up with you or I'm not, which is standard for us. I'm writing, if you ask me to write a press release, for example, I'm just making it up, but I'm either delivering on your deadline or I'm not. If I don't, that's not hungry or smart, right? So let's talk a little bit about what it's like to hire someone who may be lacking in one of those things, but they have the other two pretty buttoned up. That's hard.
Yeah, it is. It is hard. And like I mentioned, we all will go through ebbs and flows of which of the two are front runners, which one's kind of struggling. Really, at the end of the day, you want to hire someone who's teachable. And so I cater a lot of my questions around, are they open to feedback? Do they like to grow? I mean, do they even care about their development? Some people really just want to get into their job, pump out the 9 to 5 and get out. And that's okay. Like that is totally acceptable at certain places.
Fine.
Here, right? We want people to want to be better every day, to grow. And so I really look for teachability, someone who's got a team player mindset, because when you're focused on team, then you will be focused on yourself because you want to be better for your team.
That's right. That's right. Ooh, that's good stuff. Okay. You mentioned this earlier, or maybe I was thinking it, but talk to me about longer recruitment process, because that's been one of the kind of, I don't want to call it quote unquote complaint, but feedback.
Absolutely.
That we've gotten.
It is. And I mean, it's definitely one of those things. It's a risk. It can be a risk because you could potentially lose a really strong candidate. But what I've learned through the process is it actually helps me find the people who are super dedicated and have a strong desire to work at DMA.
Totally.
So it actually really helps us on that end. I want to see the want. I want them to want it so badly that they're willing if it takes a whole year. I'm being dramatic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Really,
it doesn't usually take that long.
No. At the end of the day, I think it's worth potentially an extra week or two, a little bit longer, maybe one extra interview. That time is worth it than months on the back end trying to correct poor behavior or force a culture fit. Like that is way more time consuming, right? So why not just do the work up front and find the right fit now.
Right.
And then you're set. And
Right.
there's no frustration with the team. To your point, the team's not looking around like, how did this person get in here? Why? How did this happen? So yeah, it's worth the extra time. We've seen that that's worked for us.
Right.
Time over time. And so
Yeah.
sticking to it.
Yeah. And that's, what you're jogging up for me is that, we talk about our culture here a lot and on Self Smarter, and we talk about business culture. One of the good things about a healthy business culture, and I'm not saying we're perfect, but I'm saying it's healthy right now. And then we realize that's ebb and flow, but right now it's solid. And so you have a healthy culture. That's great. Now, the bad news about that is you try to bring in a round peg into a square hole, which is a culture that's established. That's difficult.
It is hard. And it's hard for you, right, as a business. But it's even harder for the person.
Yes.
And I am all about, and I say this all the time about recruitment, is that we, of course, we have a responsibility to bring the right person into the team, into the culture. But you also have a responsibility to help the person find the right place for them. And that is, I don't think is really thought about often. It's very company focused, but you really are doing a disservice to the employee if you're not helping them realize that this is or is not the right place for them. You want them to align with the values, because what happens is they come in, and if they don't, they stick out like a sore thumb, and it is uncomfortable for the team. It's uncomfortable for them. And then, of course, they're going to leave eventually. And so you want to help them as much as you can. I try to share as much as I can about the realities. There's no...
Like the good, the bad, the ugly.
Like you don't want to just keep it like all good and all sunshine and rainbows. It is a lot of the times, but you want to share the true day-to-day of the role of the company. The history is super helpful. I like to talk about others on the team, so that way they can envision themselves working alongside these people, brainstorming with them. And so, you really need to take the time to help paint a picture, so that way the employee can literally see themselves in meshing successfully into that culture.
And they're not surprised when things get hard.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, as a middle-aged woman, I hate saying that, but it's the truth. I'm a middle-aged woman now, and I can see how the transition, like what we're doing in schools and colleges, and quite frankly, from parenting people, we're doing them a disservice when it comes to how to interview and how to be adaptable, amiable, real, vulnerable about what they're looking for and where they're going to fit in. What do you think, what would you say is the number one question you're asked whenever you interview?
I mean, everybody asks about the culture.
I knew you were going to say that.
Right? Everybody wants to know what the culture looks like.
That's right.
That's a great question to ask.
But it's not everything.
I would argue maybe dig a little deeper, get more specific. Like I'll tell my girlfriends, my siblings, like as they interview places, like don't just ask about the culture, but ask about the dynamics of the team. Like how is having a conversation with the manager? Like what does that look like? Or what does the team do for birthdays, milestones, anniversaries? Like you want to get more into the detail, because anybody can give you a very general, vague, our culture's great.
Right.
We love working together.
Right.
We have fun. That's great. But that's not really culture, quite frankly. Culture is really seen through the hard times, the hurdles, whether it's with the business or with the individual. That is where the culture starts to really shine through. And so I always challenge people to ask, as a candidate, I would ask the company, the interviewer, more specific questions, not just, I care about culture. What does that look like? I want them to ask me very specific questions.
Ooh, God, that's good stuff. Okay. Which, when you get into our culture, I'm guessing the Enneagram comes up.
Always. Is there a conversation without the
I know. Shamefully, I know. No, shamefully, unshamefully.
Yeah.
Like I love it. And it's operationalized at DMA. So I'd love for you to talk about how the Enneagram plays a part in recruitment.
Yeah, we always ask them about the Enneagram. Sometimes 9 times out of 10 people actually know exactly what it is.
Right.
They've already taken it. They know their number.
Right.
If they don't, we have them take the assessment. We will pay for that.
Yep.
That's because we care about it so much. We do use the Enneagram for recruitment. Yes, primarily in the sense of it helps me guide my questions.
Yes.
I will potentially cater a question based on what I know they're most motivated by. And I would also say, not always do I use it in recruitment, in the sense of I don't want to use it as a blanketed,
Yes.
like every number is so different. So I don't want to like judge, we're never going to judge a candidate because of their particular number, but we will use it to guide questions and conversation. And it does really help us give us a little bit more insight into how they might show up throughout the interview process.
Right. And it's just, so it really helps you say to yourself, if I know I'm dealing with, you're an 8 on the Enneagram, you're a challenger. Mm-hmm. I'm a 9, I'm a peacemaker. If you're interviewing me, you know that confrontation is the worst possible thing that I could possibly have to deal with. And so when you ask me about how I celebrate wins and you're going to expect me to be humble.
Yeah.
You're going to expect me to be humble just by default. And so you're going to push a little bit harder and you're going to ask me some questions where I was struggling.
Yeah. I might ask you, when you're having a hard time, how do you elevate that? Like if you're frustrated, do you elevate that to your manager?
Right.
Like, are you open or do you sit with it? Like,
which the tendency for a 9 is to sit with it. And you know that.
So it helps to have that in my back pocket. Cause I can already guess potentially what some hurdles could be in the future with this particular individual. And so I can get ahead of that by asking specific questions to see, do they have it in them already? The ideal team player? Do they already have the ability to be self-aware and realize potentially where their flaws are, but are super willing to be taught and to grow and to receive feedback? That's really what the Enneagram helps us see is this person potentially healthy?
Yes.
In their number to where they are open for feedback. It's important here. We give that a lot.
Right.
We want them to be better every day.
We do. Yeah. And not everybody's healthy. I mean, let's be honest. Like, when I started studying the Enneagram, I was an average at best version of myself. Once you get into it, I don't think you can get out of it.
I agree.
You can't see anything else. So what I wanted to say about the Enneagram is that really, for people who are still like, oh my gosh, with the Enneagram, I mean, I get that. I have listeners who either are like, please talk more about the Enneagram, or I see people in public and they're like, enough with the Enneagram.
Absolutely.
But I don't know how to move away from it because it's more than a personality test.
Exactly.
We are human. It's a compassion tool. It's a tool to guide for compassion and leadership.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It's people. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're all human. We're all going to be special in different ways. And we're all going to carry aspects of our personalities that make it difficult for ourselves. So we can use that when we recruit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So Hannah, you are so amazing. I just can't tell you enough. I'm so glad that you were here today.
Fun.
All of this talk makes me wonder, Self-Smarter listeners, are you using the Enneagram and or a tool like Hungry, Humble, Smart, the Ideal Team Player to help you improve your recruitment and, quite frankly, your human resources, processes, and development tools? We caution you, if you do this, you must be proficient on these things, okay? Right. So Hannah and I have studied this stuff for years. We've practiced it. We've not done so great. We've taken it back and tried to reel it in and figure out another approach and done that. So again, I want to reiterate, we're not perfect, but we're always trying. Mm-hmm. And all we can do is learn more about ourselves and others in order to position ourselves for future success.
Absolutely.
And that is our intention for today's episode. So if you don't know how to do this, if it sounds of interest to you, I know you guys probably heard a commercial where I talked about things that we can do and things that ways we want to help you. This is one of the ways we want to help you. Hannah, myself, Danelle, we want to help guide you. If it's a recruitment process that you need help with, if it's learning about the ideal team player, if it's operationalizing the Enneagram, you name it, all these little steps that you can take and get professional help with from us, we're happy to help you.
Yes.
Okay. And Hannah, we couldn't do it without you. We really couldn't. I know I tell you that a lot, but I mean it.
I'm grateful to have the role that I do. It is a special one.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a final question, and in that moment, I'm going to transfer to music. Woo!
Woo-hoo.
I know this is always Danelle's favorite part.
Oh, I know.
I don't know that you will. I do share the enthusiasm, but I don't know that you. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I when it comes to music,
yes,
I love music. Okay, like
when it comes to music,
I do love music.
Yes.
Do I listen to it on a regular basis? No. when I listen to it, what am I listening to? Country. That is, I do like other genres, but if I'm actually going to turn on the radio or put my Spotify on, like, it's country.
Yes.
And only country.
Yes. You probably grew up on, I grew up on country.
I did. And those are the concerts I prefer to go to.
Okay. Those are your people.
Yeah. Just,
Chill, laid back.
Laid back. That's like, yes, exactly. And I like to, if I'm going to listen to something, I want to be relaxed and laid back. Which, to that point, sometimes I will prefer, y'all are going to think I'm crazy, but sometimes I just like some good old silence. And
I know. That's great. I think that's good. You can imagine your own music that way.
Right. And of course, I have, the Baby First channel and Bluey and all those fun shows in the background, oftentimes now at this stage of my life.
God love you.
With that sweet little baby.
Yes.
And I like my podcasts. I really do. I would rather
You like
listen to a
data.
podcast. Yeah.
I think that's an 8 trait.
I want to like hear things that are like going to help me,
Yes.
help others. I just prefer that. I have an almost hour commute to and from the office. And so I'd rather make use of that time. And I love a good old podcast.
I do too.
I really do.
Honestly, maybe that's my 8 wing, but I love music too.
Yeah.
I do. So, but I have to know, and I think I know the answer. If you're listening to any person, like let's say you're stuck on an island. I always say this, and then my son will say, well, if you're stuck on an island, you probably don't have electricity. And if you don't have electricity, you don't have music. So I'm going to reframe it.
Assuming.
In your head, you have heard music before, and the song is going to play on repeat in your head because you don't have electricity on this island. And you're just sitting there like eating coconuts.
Good old coconut.
What are you listening to in your head?
So I love Chris Stapleton. He's my favorite.
Yes.
Primarily because he has a very relaxing voice. He's just got classics. You can't go wrong with Tennessee whiskey.
I know. Okay. I was going to ask you what your number one.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I like What Are You Listening To? It comes on all the time whenever I play Spotify randomly
Yeah.
or Pandora randomly. It'll come on and I'm like, I really love that song.
Joy of my life.
Oh.
Fitting, of course. On this stage. It's sweet.
Yes.
He's just got some goodies. Tried and true.
Tried and true. Yeah, he is awesome. And if y'all don't know who we're talking about, now's a good time to turn off the podcast.
Yeah, go
Get yourself on Chris Stapleton for sure. All right. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for doing this today. And then I just can't share my appreciation for what you do and how you guide our team enough.
I'm grateful. It's so fun.
We're so lucky to have you, and all of you would be lucky to have a little Hannah in your life. So we hope you've enjoyed this podcast today. Remember, we're going to have some important links for you in the show notes, some of the things we've been mentioning, the book, the table group, etc. Remember to tell a friend. As professionals, we're all kind of going through this together. So share something with a friend. Send this one. And until next week, we send you into the week with grateful hearts.
As always, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Self Smarter Podcasts. You can also leave a rating or review if you enjoyed what you heard today. Not only does this mean so much to us, but it also helps other leaders and future leaders find our community. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us in becoming Self Smarter. This podcast is produced by Snacks Media, and music is from a free platform. Well, that is until Brandy Carlisle reaches out to us to write the original score for our podcast. Friends, have a great rest of your day.